Hey everybody. Today I'm going to be talking to Dr. Joel Stillerman about GVSU's chapter of the American Association of University Professors. In my last video, I talked to Felix about faculty governance, but an AAUP chapter and the faculty governance system are two different organizations that try to complement each other, with the AAUP chapter being independent from the university administration. So strap in, and I hope you enjoy our conversation.
I'm a sociologist. I've been teaching at GVSU since 2002. Um, Currently, I have a joint appointment between the sociology department and the honors college. And in terms of my participation and academic governance at GVSU, I want to say, three stints on the faculty salary and budget committee. The last one ended last spring, and I've been on college curriculum committee and some other committees. So just to kind of give you a sense of my participation in sort of our official governance organizations.
Why did GVSU establish a chapter of the American Association of University Professors? And what role did the pandemic play in that decision-making process?
I think the pandemic had a lot to do with it. So as I was rotating off the salary and budget committee, and it really started out as just some small conversations with a couple of people about a sense of frustration around the way the university was responding to the budget crisis. And we can talk about whether the extent to which it's an actual crisis or not. And what our small group, felt was a lack of sufficient faculty participation in that planning and that response. And also last summer, and I mean, I don't know if you were around last summer or how in the loop students were, but I mean, it was just all of the decision making got really dragged out. And so faculty didn't really know if we were going to be allowed to teach online and under what circumstances. We didn't know if students were going to be required to wear masks or not. And so it led to a lot of stress, for lack of a better word, for faculty. And we felt that, a lot of that was unnecessary. And so I think those were the two kind of initial catalysts. And then, I mean, there was a longer term kind of concern that we felt that the academic governance committees, while we acknowledge that they play an important role, had certain limitations in terms of their ability to adequately reflect faculty perspectives. So there's a couple of issues, and I think I know that you spoke to Professor Nagasa, who's the chair of the UAS and ECS, and so he may have explained a little bit to you. But all of the major committees on campus have participation of administrators ex officio, which means that they attend all of the meetings, but they don't vote. And so the small core group of us felt that faculty don't necessarily have a chance to kind of formulate our own perspectives together, and to feel comfortable expressing ourselves candidly in those meetings because of the presence of our employers, essentially. Many of us felt like the folks that had these committees are made, and through no fault of their own, but they're kind of caught in the middle. And that kind of makes it harder for them to give, for lack of a better word, a full-threaded statement in support of faculty concerns. So that was the impetus. We had, I don't know, people that got together in the summer, and through those initial conversations, we decided we wanted to team up with the AAUP. So we went through the process of getting chartered in August. And then really since the beginning of the academic year, we've been doing a lot of recruiting and also getting some training from AAUP and we've been growing. So it's clearly, we touched on something that was widely and deeply felt by faculty.
So that's a good segue into the next question. Can you talk a bit more about what you're working on right now with the AAUP, specifically the AAUP memo to the provost about the COVID budget, quote unquote, crisis?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there were a few kind of big immediate issues that we were concerned about over the summer and fall. So we knew that Grand Valley was going to be in a difficult budget position. We didn't know how bad it was going to be, and it actually turned out to be a lot better than the kind of doomsday forecasts that we received from the university budget office. But we didn't know how bad it was going to be. But what ended up happening to kind of balance the books, I mean, there were a bunch of different things that got cut, but faculty didn't get a cost of living adjustment, which is customary. So basically, it was essentially a salary loss. And a big chunk, I can't tell you the exact percentage, but a big chunk of faculty ended up having to teach an extra class, either in the fall or fall and winter, at no additional compensation. Um, and So, and I was involved in these early discussions on the salary and budget committee, and we actually have someone on that committee who's great and really is just kind of a whiz with statistics and someone who does a lot of outside research. And so, that person had a really simple solution to this budget problem, which was basically put everyone in the university on furlough. Furlough technically means that you would take a certain number of days off, maybe one day a month. In fact, people still have work to do, so it's like a small salary cut. And we thought, or some of us on the committee thought, that that would be a more equitable way to address this budget shortfall because it would affect everyone in a very clean kind of way. What ended up happening is, so for example, in one of the colleges that I teach in, the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, 40% of the faculty did not teach 4 classes. And so there was a huge disparity. And the savings were very small. So there was a projected savings, if I remember correctly, of about $7 million, and it ended up being like under 2 million. So it was really very difficult for faculty to adjust to this, on top of adjusting to put everything online, high flex, hybrid, or whatever. That was a whole new ball game. Most of the faculty had not ever taught online before last spring, right? We also had to get trained to teach online in the summer at no compensation. So anyway, so that was a big source of frustration. And we felt like a lot of things, and we're seeing more of this during the academic year, a lot of big consequential decisions with long-term consequences for the university, good or bad, I mean, who knows, right? I can't predict the future, have been made, in the last year. And the faculty input has been minimal, or basically what the administration has said is, hey, we're going to merge these 2 colleges. We want your feedback about that decision. The decision is made, but tell us how you feel about it, and do you want us to tweak it around the edges? And so that actually is, so let me just take a step back and say, what's another consequence of these decisions, both the 4-4 teaching load and the merger of colleges, is people get fired, right? So lots of our teachers are adjuncts or they're visitors or they're affiliates. And those were the people who got fired. Some of them got rehired because like the planning of it was kind of unclear and they didn't know exactly how many students were going to come, blah, blah, blah. So people, I mean, it had a real impact on people who were out of a job and had to scramble to try and find something. I don't know what happened with those folks. And I should point out parenthetically that adjuncts and visitors are not represented by any academic governance committee at Grand Valley. Affiliates do have an advisory committee, and they may actually get brought into the University Academic Senate. That's still pending. So they didn't have a voice at all in this process. And there were a lot of staff that got let go too. Staff are represented by collective bargaining agreements. They're unionized, so they, in theory, have a little bit more protection, but that wasn't able they were not able to forestall that, and I don't know exactly how that negotiations played out. So anyway, so that whole there's a consequence of people losing their jobs. And the same is going to be true with these college mergers. So I can tell you officially, and I know of some other ones that are coming down the pike, but they're not official yet. But officially, the graduate college and the Office of Continuing Education were merged. And there's a new vice president that's heading that. And so folks who teach master's programs, at least some of them, the ones I've talked to, were quite upset about that because they say rightly that, you know, most people don't go for a master's in continuing education. They go for a master's in teaching or they go for a master's in social work. And so kind of mashing up those two modes or models of education maybe wasn't thought through super carefully. College of Community and Public Service and the College of Education are also going to be merged, and they've just appointed a dean for that new college. And also a lot of issues there about whether these two things actually fit together or whether they're apples and oranges, and also what's going to happen with the external accreditation of some of these programs, especially the professional programs, when they're under a college. So, and again, like, if you want to get a master's in education, do you go to a college of community service and education or something like that? I mean, normally that's not the way it works. But also, so there's the question about kind of how our public facing image in those colleges. But the other thing is, like, you lose deans, you lose department heads, you lose faculty, because the rationale behind these mergers was that, you know, there was basically a dollar amount that they wanted saved. And this in the context of last fall, they were predicting a $42 million shortfall and it ended up being 14. And in the winter, they were saying, well, we're going to be 10% down in enrollment, and we were worried that the state is going to take away money because the state's going to be short. It turned out we were down like 2%, if I remember correctly. I don't know. The numbers are out there. You can check them. But and actually, the state had more money because of the COVID relief that came through, the CARES Act. So, and I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna and say that, like, there's no budget issue in higher education and there are no worries about the decline in the number of college age students, especially in Michigan, because we've lost a lot of people due to the chronic woes of the auto industry. But what I am saying is, like, let's get real numbers and let's talk, everyone in the community, about how we all share the sacrifice, rather than having someone in office go, well, these numbers look good, so bam, let's do it. And so that, I think, is a big issue. So anyway, so we sent this memo to the provost. The provost is, and I know the provost very well, by the way, so, like, she was the chair of the Salary and Budget Committee as a faculty member when I was, before I got tenure, so before 2006. So I've known her for a long time. So she's very committed to the shared governance model. And so when we sent the memo, she wrote back to me, not me and the AAUP, and she didn't mention AAUP, and she said, you can express your concerns to the academic government governance committees and your dean. And so I said, all right, and I talked to the folks on AAUP, and so I sent a memo to Professor Nagasa that's pretty similar to the one that was sent to the provost and president. And 45 other AAUP members co-signed on it, but I sent it as me, not as president of AAUP. So the executive committee is going to talk about it. We'll see what happens. But that's kind of where we are right now. So I think that was our coming out party as AAUP. It didn't turn out to be, didn't go over with a big splash, I'm afraid. But from our perspective, we're big enough now where we want people across campus to know that we're here, to support faculty. And we do see this, I think, particularly the restructuring issue where we're merging colleges or we're merging units. that's a big worry, and that's something that we really wanted to weigh in on right away. Whether we can influence the process, I don't know, but that was our thinking.
So you kind of touched on that towards the end, but how is your recruitment going? How have you been reaching out to people,
I,
and
I
what's the response been?
Yeah, I think it's going well. So we have around 50 dues paying members. So in order, the AAUP's rules say that in order to vote in a university chapter, you have to pay your membership dues. It's like paying dues to a professional association. So the dues I pay to the American Sociological Association and the Latin American Studies Association. And they pay for all the research work that the AAUP does and the um, pardon me, the advocacy work that they do and the organizing work that they do. Um, so we have around 50 dues paying members, and then we have another 50 that participate in our listserv and are involved in the conversations but haven't pulled the trigger yet, or whatever metaphor you want to use to join AAUP. So, and we have representation from 7 colleges. So I think we're doing actually really well. We don't represent a majority of the faculty, but we also haven't even existed for a year yet. So I would say that I'm happy with the way things are going in terms of recruiting. Sometimes people come to us and want to join. Sometimes we reach out to folks and they express an interest. I do think that some faculty are afraid of joining, and some faculty don't agree with having an independent faculty group, and they want to kind of pursue the path of shared governance. And a lot of faculty probably don't even know about us yet. So kind of a mix. And yeah, I mean, it's on us to pound the pavement. It's a little bit harder with COVID, so we can't knock on someone's office door and say, hey, can I talk to you for 15 minutes? Because people aren't in the office and don't want to be in a small space and blah, blah, blah. But we're doing the best that we can, and the AAUP has been real helpful in terms of skill building for us with recruiting and planning activities and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's going well.
That's great to hear. So, thinking, it feels weird to say post COVID because I don't think
Mm,
we'll ever be post COVID.
right.
But like going forward, maybe once we're in person again in the
Mm,
fall, hopefully. What are your goals? What other issues are you thinking about as the AUP?
yeah. So I mean, I think we're kind of finding our footing in terms of how we interface with academic governance. I think in a perfect world, we would be allies, but I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. So that's something we have to figure out. We obviously would like to get to the point where we're officially recognized by the administration rather than, having responses that don't mention AAUP and, you know, our personal responses when it's not a personal issue. It's 100 faculty talking, right? Or however many we have at the time. And I think there are a couple of I would say kind of meta issues that concern us. One is transparency. That we don't, and I've been on FSBC Salary and Budget Committee long enough to know that we don't have a full picture of the university's budget. Okay, we get to see the academic and student affairs budget in some detail, but we don't see the athletics budget. We don't really have a full sense of how money is accessed and spent on new construction. You may have seen the recent story about the $4 million sidewalk that's being built downtown. Um, and it seemed, at minimum tone deaf to engage in that kind of capital campaign at this particular time. So I think budget transparency is a big issue. I think, and this is something we say in our materials, which you may have had a chance to look at, having a seat at the table. So we don't have administrative roles in the university, and we understand that the board of trustees hires the president hires the provost, and so on, and that they are, legally bound to have the ultimate responsibility for decision making. But, as we have often said, without faculty and students, you don't have a university. And so, and without faculty, you don't have students. So we do want to have a seat at the table as these big decisions are being developed and not at the tail end of the process. We've talked, and this is something where I think we need to know more from faculty, but we've talked about maternity leave as a potential issue to work on for faculty, because we kind of have a sort of an ad hoc policy that isn't really at the level that we would expect of a large employer and an institution of higher learning. And so that's something that we may want to take a look at, as well as sort of gender and racial equity in salaries. We haven't really dug into that, but you may have seen a few months ago, there was actually the Justice Department went after Princeton University because the numerous female faculty had complained that they were earning like massive amounts of money less than their male counterparts, and the Justice Department basically told Princeton, you better fix this, which is pretty unusual, as a private institution. And I know, from many other anecdotal stories at many other universities, that this is an issue. I don't know for a fact that it's an issue at Grand Valley, but it's something that, we'd like to look into. And I don't believe that salary and budget or any of the other companies or any of the other committees have looked at that, at least to my knowledge. And I think that, there are general concerns around faculty workload and the way that that has gotten ramped up in the last year. And we hope that, this is a temporary thing. So, I can tell you, I've been in this profession for 23 years, and hands down, this was like the worst year of my career in terms of the toll it's taken on me, sort of mentally, physically, emotionally. And I'm not alone. I hear it from all my colleagues, and I also see it with my virtual colleagues on Twitter that I communicate with. And so that, I think, is something that, we need to continue to be vigilant about. So, but really, the biggest thing we need to do is just keep recruiting, and as we recruit more, I suspect that the issues are going to come to us, because we're going to learn a lot about our colleagues in different parts of the university that we didn't know. Grand Valley is, I don't know how much you know about the history of Grand Valley, but it started out as these separate colleges that I think it was, following some of the British models. So there was the William James College, there was the Kirkhoff College, there was the Thomas Jefferson College, and they eventually got merged together. But I definitely have the sense of really different things happening in different parts of the university in terms of like the way we do our instructional and research and service work. So I can just give you an example that like faculty in the College of Health Professions, so that's like physical therapy, public health, and allied health science, if I remember correctly. Maybe occupational therapy, I'm not sure, but you could look up the units. In any case, most people at the university are on a 9-month contract. And so basically, we're responsible for 12 credit hours of teaching in the fall and 12 credit hours of teaching in the winter. And if we want to make a little extra money, we teach a class in the summer. And most of us get a 3 credit hour release so that we can produce our research. In the College of Health Professions, and I don't know if this is true in other colleges, faculty are on a 12-month contract, and they're responsible for 30 credits. So 24 during the academic year, so that would be similar to everyone else, and then another 6 in the summer. And I don't know what like the comparable salary is. And part of the question is, different academic fields have different salaries, and that in part reflects the possibility of people to get jobs outside of academia. So like nurses often earn more because they could get jobs as nurses. So you have to kind of attract them from the private sector or the nonprofit sector to the academic. But that's a disparity. And so I think part of the recruiting process is just learning about the working conditions that and the issues that people are experiencing in their unit and their college. We have talked about trying to build connections with students, through the Student Senate or through other student organizations. And so that's a pending task. I mean, I kind of feel like just dragging myself out of bed every morning is like Herculean, but it's on our list, and we may have some other members that have the time and the energy to reach out to folks. And I mean, part of it is just for us, it's a little bit opaque, like what are the big issues for students? Like occasionally we'll hear something in class or something like that, but not being at those meetings. I mean, I do think I follow the Student Senate on Twitter or something like that, so I might occasionally get an update from them. But it's important, and the faculty and students don't always see eye to eye on everything, but finding common ground in the fact that we all care about the university and we want it to do well seems like a no-brainer to me.
Thank you so much. We've gone
Well,
over the time that I asked of you.
Well, thanks for your interest.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out the link in the description and visit the AUP's website. Bye.